So by now, you know that there seems to be no real end to the classified document saga. At the UPenn Biden Center, both in an office and President Biden's private office, classified documents that certainly should not be there, in his home in Delaware, and in his garage parked next to the prized Corvette. Four different places within two locations. We have classified documents, including those, according to CNN, marked TSSCI, top secret, TSSCI, specialized compartmentalized information, which would mean that these are documents that can only be read in the most safe of safe places. That's what this refers to. Often you'll hear the conversation of something called a SCIF. This is where those types of documents are indeed read. What is in these documents? Well, we know certain things, basic things, like they may have something to do with Ukraine, but we don't yet have a full accounting and a full reporting on what's in these documents. Now, maybe we'll never know the nitty gritty of what's in the documents, but certainly we should have an understanding of what these documents are. And no matter what the spin, we shouldn't lose focus on the subject. Guys, good to be with you. Presented this show right here by Americans for Prosperity. AmericansForProsperity.org, economic freedom, freedom of speech. These are the things that I love and adore. Also, steak. They should also mention steak in their tagline right there. I had the weirdest experience over the weekend. I was on Fox News twice. Now, being on Fox is not a weird experience for me, and I'm greatly appreciative of it. But it's weird that you would do two in one day. It's just the way that it worked out, and they were cool with it. And so I was like, great. And I had lost my voice the day before, and so I'm a little raspy in these conversations. But a strange thing happened. I had two different moments, actually three, because we ended up doing two segments during the midday. So I did one with Bill Melugin over there at Fox News. You often see him at the border, the incredible work he's done there. And then another one with Jillian Turner. And then in the evening, I was on with Lawrence Jones on Cross Country. And both times I was part of the political panel and, paired up with a progressive. And during the daytime, it was Richard Fowler, Fox News contributor. In the evening, it was Kevin Walling, who bills himself as a former Biden surrogate. I think he's a Fox News contributor as well. I don't know either man well, but I've certainly gone up against Kevin Walling enough. I think that he's actually a rather nice guy, even though I disagree with him. Richard Fowler, I know less, and he has been more combative, certainly with me, and he did so again. If you watch the full video, which we have up at rumble.com/Tony Katz, constant interruptions in our conversation. But I'm going to share with you two things that happened. Quite incredible, actually, because in both of these situations, it was the same exact response to these documents. So we understand each other. Joe Biden, who claimed that it was irresponsible of Donald Trump to have classified documents in his home, and I certainly don't disagree. Why were classified documents in Donald Trump's home? Now, there's the argument or conversation of whether or not he declassified things. He was president. He can declassify anything he chooses. Really important to remember, there's not a system. There's not some perfunctory making 32 grand a year that gets to decide whether or not something's properly declassified. The president of the United States, just by talking about it, can declassify anything the president chooses to declassify. Whether he did in this case, well, do your investigations. I don't like that he had the stuff in his home, but at least he could have an argument. The documents we're talking about with Biden came from when he was vice president. He would not have had the ability to declassify anything. Vice presidents can do two things: smoke cigars and wait for someone to die, which would make me a pretty kick-ass vice president, by the way. So there is a chasm of difference here. The other one is, here's Biden and the Democrats screaming and yelling about President Trump. And now it's happening to Biden, and Biden doesn't even know where the documents were from. He never knew he had such documents, and Democrats are mostly silent. If you're opposed to people having classified documents, you're opposed. That would seem to me a pretty rational, point of view. Check this out. This was Richard Fowler. And this was the first hit I did. Richard Fowler over there at Fox News. Check out how he answers this question from Bill Malugin.
A brand new news cycle here that keeps renewing itself, if you will, every couple of days. Do you have concerns that this is essentially going to start overshadowing the president's agenda? And as more documents are found, this is really what everybody's going to be talking about.
Listen, there's no question that the president would rather us talk about his trip to the border and talk about the melee that's happening in the House Republican caucus. But the truth of the matter here is we're having a conversation about documents found in his house, and that is indeed problematic for this White House and the president. But I think here is the good news for the White House in this moment. In this moment, the White House can rely on the fact that they appointed a former federal judge to be their attorney general in Merrick Garland. And the first thing that Merrick Garland did here was he appointed a special counsel. And the special counsel is investigating this, which shows that what Biden has said all along: I will follow the rules, I will cooperate with the Justice Department, and I will appoint an attorney general that's above politics and above political reproach. And what this attorney general is doing is he's put somebody in there that is looking for these documents and finding them, and that shows that it's working. And it's also worth pointing out here that in the case of President Trump, there was a subpoena that got these documents and not cooperation. Tony?
Now, the attorney general's doing the right thing. Biden's cooperating, and there was no subpoena needed. That's your argument? That's the argument when confronted with the president of the United States having classified documents in 4 spots in 2 locations that we know of. Now, I thought that was, I had kind of predicted that one on my radio shows, and I'll get to my response in a second. But lo and behold, that evening, and my voice had gotten worse, I'm on with Lawrence Jones, and there's Kevin Walling, basically asked the same question, and here's his response.
I think that's why it was so important what you saw from the Attorney General appointing the special counsel, a former Trump Department of Justice official, to look into that, because we need to the extent that we can, take politics out of this situation. There are serious charges being leveled in terms of how these classified documents were handled. But the key difference that I see, just in terms of what has been reported, is between what is negligent and what is willful negligence. When the fact that we've seen just a handful of documents mishandled as part of what we saw coming out of the Obama-Biden administration, compared to over 100 documents or so that were discovered at Mar-a-Lago, I think there's a huge difference here.
Once again, the mentioning of Trump, and it was a little bit different of a clip than I had the first time. This idea of numbers. This idea of numbers I've heard from a whole bunch of people. This spin that somehow the number of classified documents is what matters. Why? Why is that what matters? If I break the law, I break the law. If I break the law 10 times over, I've still broken the law. It's not more of a crime or less of a crime when it comes to classified documents. They're not where they're supposed to be. They've been mishandled. That's obvious. And of course, there's the idea of intent. The intent thing does matter, and does certainly matter to lawyers, but it doesn't matter that you mishandled classified documents, whether it's 1 or 101. That part does not matter. In both of these cases, Richard Fowler and Kevin Walling, the argument is, well, check out the differences. And oh, look, we got an attorney general who's appointed a special counsel. And isn't that important? In both of these cases, there was a conversation about something that happened ipso facto, after the fact, and then something that has nothing to do with the conversation at hand. Trump doesn't come into this conversation at all. President Trump does not exist in this classified document conversation. The question is about what Biden did. 4 spots in 2 locations. What Biden did wrong. What they're saying is, look at all the things he's doing right. But he didn't do things right. Thus, my response to Richard Fowler.
And none of that matters, Richard. If that's the best that the White House can put out there, it's a worse week for Biden than I thought.
That's the truth. If that's the best you've got, you've got nothing. And as for Kevin,
in the garage, in his private office, at the UPenn Center, you have two options with Joe Biden and these documents. Either he's engaged in some neglect in handling classified documents, and that's criminal, or he's incompetent and he doesn't know he has the documents in these places.
Yeah.
The idea that he called the DOJ, he handed things over. You mean after he made the violations? Don't tell me he's a good guy because of what he's doing now and calling his
total
lawyers.
cooperation between the White House and the Department of Justice on this, which is not what you saw come out of Mar-a-Lago, my buddy.
I missed y'all, but we're short on time.
Comparing it to
we'll
Trump
have y'all back
is
next
laughable
week.
silliness.
total silliness. Total silliness. And I loved how Lawrence was like, or both, right? Negligent or incompetent or both. Yes. I mean, those are the answers. What they are focused on is what Biden did ipso facto, not what Biden did. And what Biden did is the conversation at hand. Both gentlemen aggressively trying to move the conversation away from what Biden did. And yes, that dog won't hunt. We are going to stay focused on what happened. When Trump got raided, which wasn't necessary. And by the way, if maybe I'm only talking about myself and how I discussed it on radio, you tell me. The argument was not, oh, by the way, it was fine for Trump to have classified documents. It was, what the hell was the raid for? You were already talking to him. You were already getting things that he argued that some of the things he was entitled to. Well, some people would ask, well, if you didn't raid it, how would you get them? You had to get them back for national security issues. I guess there's an argument there, but it seems weird that you would engage a raid when the president, in this case, former President Trump, wasn't even at home. You engaged a raid because you thought it would bring less press attention. You just sent the FBI into the house of the former president. It's going to get press attention. My gosh. It's going to get when Lizzo plays James Madison's flute, it's going to get press attention. You send FBI agents into former President Trump's house, it's going to get press attention. What a ridiculous commentary that was. Trump could at least make the argument that they're declassified. Biden can't make that argument. You need to be disgusted by the fact that he had them. I got Hillary in the bathroom with the server. I've got Trump at his house. I've got Biden all over the place. But let's now get into a conversation about some other things involving Joe Biden. Of course, the news flash that has taken place.
And Dana, some news this morning. We are learning there are no visitor logs chronicling who comes and goes from the president's house in Wilmington. An official at the White House counsel's office is telling me that, like every president in modern history, a personal residence is personal. They make the distinction that, unlike the previous administration, the Trump administration, they are committed at the White House to being transparent about White House visitor logs. But in terms of what Republicans on the Hill are asking for, a record of who may have been in the Wilmington residence and potentially had access to the areas where these documents were found, it does not appear that that exists. It would have to be done, it sounds like, retroactively.
Now, we know that Hunter Biden lived in the house. Hunter Biden, who we know has questionable deals with China and Ukraine, and we know some of the documents have to deal with Ukraine. He was in the house. Who did he bring with him? A guy who is known to the Obama administration as shady. They didn't want deals happening because of the issues with Hunter Biden. We know this for fact. Hunter Biden is a national security concern because of his connections to the big guy. You realize how much that clearly seems to be the case. I'll take more investigation, but the big guy getting 10% isn't Joe Biden. Yeah, I'm not buying that one either. He had access to the garage, access to the house. They keep talking about how the closet where classified documents were found at the UPenn Biden Center was locked. Locked by what? And who had a key? These are the basic questions that need to be asked. Oh, and by the way, answered. And yes, we need to know who went to the Biden house. You're right. If friends come over for a drink or a cigar, you don't need to tell me that. Is the president allowed to have some level of private life? I would say yes, small, but he is allowed it. Not anymore. not when you find classified documents at his home, not when he puts the United States in danger. He's no longer entitled to that privacy. We deserve to know. And every day the Biden administration doesn't tell us, the Biden administration looks worse and is more of a danger to society. I know, danger to society. Is there a better way for me to say that? Well, classified documents in places where near anybody could have had access to them, people coming to the house who we don't know about, including his son, who already lied on a federal form to get a firearm, by the way. That was Form 4473, when he lied about using drugs to purchase a firearm. Yeah, maybe American society is at risk because of this. Why can't I say that? There are millions of Americans saying it right now because we are not being given the full story, the completeness. There's been talk that this is the kind of scandal that can really take down the Biden administration. Good. Because the Biden administration should be taken down for it. And I know what you're going to say. You're talking about President Kamala Harris, Tony. No, I'm talking about the idea that we can't stand for these things. We can't accept them. There's a problem here, and this problem needs to be addressed. Now, do I think the I word is going to come into play? Impeachment? It may from some, it may need to. But I've seen too many of these cases, just like you, where everything kind of gets brushed under the rug and massaged over and nothing ever happens. That's wrong. But the defense from two progressives being near virtual, it didn't matter what he did. It only matters what he's doing now. No, it doesn't. It matters what he did. And I still wonder, where's the FBI raid? Why are Biden's lawyers allowed to go through all the documents? And lawyers who don't have security clearance, they're going to call somebody in every time they find something? Embarrassing stuff. Let me go to the comments. What is being hidden, Patty? I don't know. I have absolutely no idea what is being hidden. Zero clue of what's being hidden. Let's get ourselves an investigation. But what I do know is that these documents were reported at the UPenn Biden Center on November 2nd. We had a midterm on November 8th and no one told us. No one told anybody for 2 months until CBS broke the story. You think that's right? You think that makes sense? Not me, and not you either. So what's being hidden? I'm going to argue clearly something. This is Stephen. Stephen, what's going on? Anybody who visits the residence of the president, whether at the White House or his personal home, we the people should know. Is the president entitled to any privacy from we the people? It's a good question. Normally I'd say I don't need to know when his kids come over, but maybe you need to with Hunter because there is a security issue at play there. I go back to the Obama White House that stated that. It's an interesting question about whether or not a president has any privacy in terms of visitors. Should we know? I don't think there's any question that now, because of these documents, we should know. We should 1,000% know the answer to that. Let me go on. Will Hunter pay me $50,000 a month to rent my house? Wait, hold on. I'm missing something there. Will Hunter pay me $50,000? Hunter was paying his father $50,000? Wait, am I missing a part of the story? Oh, someone's got to tell me about that. Someone's got to tell me about that right away, immediately, if not sooner. This is Freddie. Could have been top secret military papers he was going to give to other countries. I smell espionage. Yeah, but you don't know that for sure. We don't know that for sure. So I'm not going to play in that level of speculation. What I am going to note is that if there were indeed documents about Ukraine, and you've got Hunter Biden who had deals with Ukraine, well, there's a reason to be concerned. Same thing with documents about China, and Hunter had deals with China as well. That's it. That right, by the way, is certainly worth paying attention to. The defense is just something else because they're not defending. They won't even talk about the action. They think that what Biden's doing afterwards is what matters. And it doesn't matter at all or in any way. Doesn't matter. Does not matter in the slightest. That's the story. Now, I will, Bill. Now, this is probably the biggest part of the rumor mill right now, that this is all about getting rid of Biden. I put forth to you the following. If you ask me whether these documents are planted, I don't believe you. If you say to me that this is just a big play to get Biden out and all this was a setup, I don't believe you. I believe that Biden is as incompetent then as he is now, and he had these documents. And he didn't go about securing them. He never cared about securing them because he believes he's above it all. But is there a move to try and get Biden not to run? I think that goes without saying. We actually saw this start in the days before the midterms. People were softening the ground for saying Biden's too old, Biden's not capable, all these things. And then Democrats did better than we thought. And that talk kind of went away. There was already the move afoot to make that happen. I think that is going to play out. I think that's going to play out huge. No, I don't think you see Biden running again. But I also don't think you see anybody looking happy about Kamala 2024. Not at all in any way. By the way, Hunter was paying $50,000 a month to live in his dad's house. My gosh. He really does sell a lot of art. Guys, I appreciate you. I appreciate the time. And I'm glad you're watching. My thanks to Americans for Prosperity. AmericansForProsperity.org. You got to go check them out. Good people having good conversations. You know, it's funny. I don't even agree with them on everything, but they love a good, open, robust conversation. And so I'm thrilled to work with them here in Indiana and all across the country is what I'm doing right there. Appreciate you as well. And don't forget to check out where we are on Locals, TonyKatz.locals.com. Go check that out right away. And I'll catch